Hey everybody, it's Onslaught here, bringing you another Disney Sorcerer's Arena video from Under the Radar Gaming. And in this video, we're going to check out the Summoner Stone recommendations for each of the characters that you're going to be playing. We're going to take an overview of what Summoner Stones are. We're going to take an overview of what each of them do, and why you want to put them on your characters, and specifically, which ones. Come on, let's check it out. So first thing with Summoner Stones is that we want to know exactly what we're looking at. Okay, so if you've seen this big infographic, this was posted in the Sorcerer's Arena Discord. Maybe you're not too familiar with stones. All you're looking at is Tier 1, Tier 2, Tier 3 stones, some upgrade materials, and you're thinking to yourself, well, what does that mean? It's just stones of colors and no labels, right? So let's take a look. So we have 7 different stones. They have labels like ruby, sapphire, quartz, amethyst. They have those names. But essentially, we have offense in red, defense in blue, health in pink, recovery in green, speed in yellow, critical chance in orange, and critical power in purple. And when we first start to look at each of these stones, what we need to remember is the percentage changes that each of these stones give us. And what makes this video really interesting and a little awkward is that all of the stones increase the stats of the characters that are given to them, all by the exact same percentages, with the exception of critical chance. So with offense, defense, health, recovery, speed, and critical power, all of your character stats will go up by 5%, then 10%, then 15%. And that's back with each of these. So you have 5%, and then 10%, and then 15% with Tier 1, Tier 2, and Tier 3. So critical chance will boost the chance by 2%, 4%, and 6%. So when you start to unlock these, the good news is that you can change them between each of your characters. So when the stones come on, they can be unequipped. Stones can break down into different shards and crafting materials and things. But for the most part, you're only going to be working with your top set of teams, your top set of characters, and you're probably thinking to yourself, well, which ones am I putting on which? And the reason that this got really uncomfortable was, like I said, because the numbers were all the same. Okay, so I'm going to go through and break down to you why I would put the stones that I've chosen on each of the characters. And be aware, spoiler alert, there are some super hot takes in this. Okay, the meta is still developing, the meta is still establishing. A lot of these are team dependent, a lot of these are strategy dependent. Maybe if you're in PvP versus Sorcerer's Tournament, if you're on defense versus offense. So all of those things are going to take a big stance and then play a big role in the effect that we have. So I want to show you guys, because you guys know me by now. You know that I love my spreadsheets. So I want to show you guys something that I gathered. This is a credit to dsafan.com/character/stats. And I've essentially gone through and uploaded the table. And the table is all of the stats of all of the characters. And then I've gone through and broken down each of the characters by their individual stats for each of the stones that you have a chance at grabbing. And this is the stone selection at the end. So when we go to the original stat sheet, I've also, with the courtesy of my friend Zach Sullivan, so shout out to my boy Zach Sullivan. I told him I'd do it. He hooked me up with this cute little box, which is super helpful, that allows me to go through that chart and select the character that I want and see the stats that are in here. Now, this bar right here is the bar with the bonus stones. So this is as if I could put every stone on the character. So this is that max level 15% increase down here at the bottom. Obviously, potency, tenacity, and accuracy are completely irrelevant. They're just down here multiplying because I just dragged the formula across. So the next thing I wanted to look at was, what is the change in the stat itself based on the percentage increase. So you'll notice that Anna, her offense increases by 223, whereas Aladdin's increases by 217, Emperor Zurg's increases by 247, and you see the different stats. So that was one thing I took into consideration when selecting stones, was what is the actual gain and increase that the stone is giving me based on the percentage. What was difficult and obviously very unfortunate was, since the stones give a percentage increase and not a flat rate, every single character gains the same percentage benefit from the stone. Because all the stones give a 15% increase, every character stat benefits by 15%. So you'd had to break it down by the stat bonus number. Now, if you have a character like Emperor Zurg, and you're trying to figure out, well, do I put, let's say, an offensive stone on him or a speed stone on him, that became really difficult to evaluate, because speed is a relative base of turn meter and turn meter acquisition, with ties being generated randomly, and every character gaining their speed after the top character's speed is assigned at full. And if to break that down to you, let's look at the speed category. So this is all the characters listed primarily by their speed. If dash is in the game and there are no speed bonuses applied to any of the characters in the game, dash will go first and his speed bar will be at 100. Then, based on the speed of all of the other characters, they will take their turns. So with nothing else happening, and this being the base speed, if all of these characters were in a battle royale, Dash would attack first, then Hades would attack, then the game would randomly choose between Elsa or Shan Yu, then Sven would attack, then there would be a big randomizer for the following characters, a small randomizer, then Jack Jack, another randomizer, and so on and so forth. So as each of the characters' stones were evaluated and their speeds changed, so you can see on this right-hand side the max speed that they were able to receive, you had to start to think about what stones might be applied to other characters, and if you were getting more of a benefit out of going again or hitting harder. And I kind of used a rough guesstimate in here to try to figure that out. So I took the chances, and I'll go in and kind of break this stuff all down when we get to the next set of pages. I took the chances with some numbers and came up with some ideas, but I know that everybody's dying to see the recommendations. I know that's why you clicked on the video. I don't want to delay you. I'll come back to this after that. So let's get ourselves over to that stone thing. So drum roll, please. The very first set of recommendations, offensive stones. These are my offensive stone recommendations. So if I was going to give an offensive stone and I could only give it to 5 characters, I would give that to Elsa, Hades, Dash, Sven, and Shan Yu. The reason that I chose these 5 characters was because their speed is already significantly higher than the other characters in the game, and their speed is high enough that even if other characters took speed stones, they are still most likely attacking either before them or very, very close to them without that. So giving them a speed stone is most likely going to just keep them in the same turn order that they're in, and they're not going to bypass anybody. They're not going to be taking turns again ahead of anybody else unless the character's painfully slow or we're 5-6 turns into the game, right? So if I'm already attacking faster than the rest of the people on the other team, I just want to hit harder, because damage in any type of game where you have like an 80 carrier offensive based, like this is the person dealing my damage, like a DPS, whatever terminology you use in your games, it's literally damage per second. So if Elsa hits for 10,000 damage, but she only hits once in the whole game, then that's it. Elsa's just going to deal 10,000 damage and be done. If Dash hits for 5,000 damage, but hits 3 times in the game, then Dash is going to deal more damage hitting more times. And so I attempted to that's the basis that I used. I want my characters to deal the most amount of damage over the course of the game. These characters will deal the most amount of damage with an offensive stone. These characters will take more turns than the people that you're playing against. They will deal more damage. Asterisk thing to consider is when you're looking at your stones, go into your character's abilities and see which character's abilities scale with their damage. So for instance, Dash's basic attack deals 75% of his base offense, right? So Dash is already going first. Yes, I'll get more damage out of him going first. I'm going to see more damage overall with him just hitting harder, if that makes sense. Hades with his global ability, Elsa with her global ability, and then almost a cakewalk was Sven's choice. Because Sven is assisting on most teams every single time Kristoff attacks, and he assists very, very regularly with other characters on his team. So he's going to be hitting more often, one, based on his speed being higher, and two, the fact that he's assisting all the time. And so if he's just dealing more damage, he's just dealing more damage. So those are my offensive characteristics. Now, brace yourself, because this is going to be the most hot take out of any of the stone recommendations that you're going to see out there. And I'm going way out on a limb, and I can back it up. You just got to stay with me here. Okay, defensive stone recommendations. You ready for this? Nothing. Don't do it. It's a trap. It's a trap. Okay? It's a trap. My opinion, health is the new speed if you got a tank. And the reason I'm gonna skip back over and break that down to you in just a little bit, but if you look at the way that the game breaks down statistics, damage or defense is the amount of damage your character can take before they start taking it off their health bar. Okay? Health is just how much health they have before they die. Okay? Let's jump over and show you why I made this super hot take. If we look at each of the characters in the defensive stone bar, okay, this is the highest their defense is going to be. Oogie Boogie's going to max the game out with Monterey Jack at 644. Okay, this is now their health bar with no modifications to it. This is it, right? Because if I go over to their health bar, this is what their health bar actually caps at with the stone, right? So I had to figure out, how do I measure the amount of damage they're taking, and then how many times you got to hit them to get into their health bar, and it's just every character's hitting differently. Crit. So here's what I did. I went to this offensive page to see how hard everybody was hitting. I just averaged out the offense. It's crazy high. So the average offensive damage is Dash and Elastigirl, right? Well, since most characters that you're going to be fighting against in the DPS category are up here, they're probably going to be hitting for maybe even a little bit more than that, right? But they got other characters in here and other people making their auto. So let's say on average, this is the base, everybody's hitting for 1727, okay? That means that every time they hit for 1727, minus that 644, this is how much damage they're taking on average, okay? That means this is how many times you got to hit them, dealing this much damage to deal that much damage. That's 21.12 times. So since they're not dead at 21, you got to hit this guy 22 times to hit him. That's pretty good. You jump up in the health bar, you got to hit him 23 times. I know it's a small margin, but this game is going to be won and lost on small margins, okay? And I thought to myself, there's just no way that you cannot need a defensive stone. The defensive stones are, that defensive buff, you look at this, 588 to 644, it's massive. It's absolutely massive. I haven't seen anything on, scaling. I haven't seen anything that makes me believe the defense doesn't just work the way that the game states. The amount of damage they take before they start taking it off their health. And in that case, I would rather have 2,300 more health. I would rather have 23.5 on my character. I'd rather have 23,000, right? Yeah. Sorry. 2,005. I'm so bad at math. 3,500. I'd rather have 3,500 more health. Because 3,500 more health is at least 3 attacks from the average damage. So that being said, without further ado, we're going to jump over to the health recommendations, and these are the health recommendations I got for you guys, right? So I basically took, these are all the tanks that you're most likely going to be playing. If you're not playing, I know that Oogie Boogie's not seeing a lot, but based on what the stats that I was looking for, defense compared to health, while his other abilities might not be as useful, he's someone who's going to be tanking, who's certainly going to do it. I think Chunk's going to start seeing more play once he gets up there, just because he does have a lot of other mitigating factors and can do a lot for effects on the field and can really manipulate things that are going on with your opponent. Most players in the early game are going to have Gaston, and he's going to be up there. You could be running him as your Kingdom team tank. You might not be. If you have an Incredibles team, you have a Frozen team, you're going to have Kristoff, you're going to have Mr. Incredible. This recommendations page is basically saying whoever your tank is in your team, put a health stone on them, not a defensive stone on them. I scaled through the whole sheet. There just wasn't. And so this was, and I could be wrong, right? If you figure out I'm wrong or I just don't understand how these things are working, by all means, drop that comment in the comment section so that we can have a talk about this and figure it out. I looked at some of the recommendations that other players were making out there, that other teams were making, and I just thought to myself, if everything is scaling the same, like this would be totally different if the defensive stone was like even gave you 16% to their defense and the health gave you like 15% or 12. So because everything is scaling so close and everybody's stats are so close, it just doesn't make any sense for my characters to get more defense, especially when you have a character like Kristoff who's giving himself defense. So if Kristoff's going to keep bumping his defense up like all the time, I don't want to make his defense more. I just want to give him more health. And the other reason I like health over defense is because if you get characters early in the game that start giving you, like Facilier giving you the health regen and Ariel giving health regen, and your character's health is already maxed out, you're not gaining health. It's not going into some protection shield in your defense. But if your health bar is really high and you get smashed, then you have way more room to gain all that health. So to me, there was just not enough upsides to running that defensive stone over a health stone. Critical chance. Okay, critical chance is the percentage chance that when your character does an attack, they are going to land a critical hit. Okay? My critical chance recommendations are very, very interesting. Now, I understand that we don't have access to Zeus just yet, but based on that chart and based on the tables that I saw, I did put him up there. So, Elastigirl leads the game in her base crit chance in the first place, okay? Now, this might be a reason to not give her a critical chance at all. This might be a reason to give her an offensive stone. This might be a reason to give her a crit power stone. Elastigirl's already hitting at a 24% crit chance, right? This stone puts her in a 30s. It puts her at 30 at max, so a 30% chance. You're pushing up on a 1 in 3 shot every time you do any kind of attack to land a crit. She has got some massive early game, tons of damage, stealing harmful effects, pushing bonus effects and positive effects around your team, increasing positive effects, things like that. So that's super solid. Shan Yu, because he can hit multiple people, because if he lands that headbutt and gets a kill, he gets another turn, because he's got the debuff on his eagle, and he's got that AoE. That's a pretty good reason to do it. And then with Shere Khan, Merida, and Mulan, they were just the next set of characters on the list that had the highest percent crit chance. So my recommendation for crit chance stones was I just took the top 5 characters in the game with crit chance and said, well, if all of these characters are going to be pushing over a 25% chance to land a crit, and other factors determine their speed is already good, so they're never going to go first even with their speed stones, but they're certainly not going to go last. They're always going to be middle of the table. They're always going to be dealing a lot of damage. You're going to be doing that, or you're going to be giving them some kind of other stone. And so I put next to Merida and Mulan that if you're not giving them the crit chance stones, you're probably just giving them an offensive stone, because they're already well-rounded. They attack very often. They have a decent chance to crit. So giving them just more damage overall would benefit you. And so then the last one that we come to is crit power. And I know that you're going to notice I jumped over recovery stones, and I'll touch on those in just a second. So with the crit power stone recommendations, you're going to see some of the same characters we've seen before. We see Elastigirl on here, like I had mentioned, Shere Khan, because he already has a high chance to crit in the first place, so maybe not make his damage more. And then Hades, Big Bad Wolf, and Aladdin. I included Big Bad Wolf and Hades because there are team strategies where you can guarantee that these characters crit, and I have won, especially in the middle where I am. I'm in the 40s to the high 40s to low 50s in terms of player level, and so if I can be playing in the arena or sorcerer's tournament and guarantee that Big Bad Wolf crits, and he lands an attack that just about kills most of the people on the other team, I'm finishing them up with Dynamite. I'm finishing them up with Sven and Kristoff. I'm finishing them up with Anna's thing. I'm finishing up with Elsa's Black. Like, there's a lot of ways that I'm cleaning that up, and the same is true with Hades. Hades is outputting a ton of damage, and if you can guarantee that crit, he just gets that 5-man or 6 if they've summoned like Raj or some of the trolls. A 6-man. Aladdin has his speed down carpet ability, and because he's hitting multiple people, it's worth having there. But as we kind of like wrap that, right, and we're kind of coming full circle, recovery stones, just there's so few characters that are even giving you the ability to provide some kind of recovery mechanic. So like Ariel was a really great choice. Like Baloo's a great choice because they're already doing it. But Ariel's normally like one of the only healers that you're gonna see in a lot of the team comps. Like, yes, Facilier is healing, but he's also like super good at utility, and he's got charms, and he's got that frog dispel. Like, he's got a lot of things, so maybe you want him to be going before everybody else. Other factors to consider when you're laying your stones out are where you want your characters to be in the turn order. So, for instance, does Big Bad Wolf benefit from getting a speed stone? Absolutely. Every character benefits from getting a speed stone. But if every character's got a speed stone, then every character's attacking in the same order they were already attacking in. I think Hamada's going to do wonders for the meta because his speed boost is bigger than Shan Yu's. Yes, he's got less characters currently that he affects, but should we see the rest of the Big Team Hero 6 come out, or Big Hero 6, not Big Team Hero 6, Big Hero 6 come out, that's going to make things different. That's going to be game changing. So when you're applying the stones, there were a lot of characters that sat in the middle of the table speed-wise, or sat in the top third speed-wise, that I thought to myself, if I give them a speed stone, they might bump like Elsa. They might bump Hades. They might get up there and attack before them, and so they're going to hit harder and deal more damage. Or I could think, well, maybe my opponents are going to give their speed stone, so I'll hit with an offensive stone and things. So I think that the game is going to be hashing these out. I'm expecting to see some changes with them. I know that there are characters that are wishing we just had more content and not more ways to play with our characters, and more ways to kind of mitigate their stats. I don't necessarily think there's enough just yet. I think that the flat rate across the board is not great. For instance, things that I would like to have seen is I would have liked to have seen like the offensive stones go giving 100, 150, and 200 offense, but then the speed stones giving percentage increases, or the other way around. Offensive stones giving percentages with speed giving flat rates. Only because I had a lot of fun doing this, and I have a lot of fun investigating, and when you're looking at the meta and you're trying to decide, how do I climb further in PvP, how do I climb further in Sorcerer's Tournament, what stones counter other stones, you get to the point where if you're clicking Sorcerer's Tournament and all the people that you're playing against all have speed stones, then you have only two choices. You either put all the speed stones on in the game that you just negate each other, right? It's just a wash, or you put all your offensive stones on, deal with the fact that you're going to go second, but you're going to hit harder and hope that you get there that way. So, again, going back to this sheet, when we want to kind of look at it a little bit deeper, there were a lot of factors that went into it, especially when I go ahead and select somebody. So when I looked at, like, for instance, somebody like Elsa, Elsa's hitting for 300 more. I'll break this down. So where I got these numbers from was, I was guessing, like, let's say every character only gets to attack so many times, right? So I was like, okay, well, let's say that without a speed stone, that character was guaranteed to attack 2.5 times. And with a speed stone, the character was guaranteed to attack 3 times. So it didn't really give that much of a benefit to the speed stone at all. Right? I mean, half a turn. So maybe you attack 3 times, your opponent only attacks twice. But Elsa's hitting for almost 300 more damage. Right? She's hitting for like 240. So Elsa's hitting for 240 more damage over the course of the whole game. Is that like a wowing number? Not really. When you look at a character like Dash isn't hitting for much more with the speed stone or with the offensive stone, so there's some argument there to go, well, he's already going first, let's give him the offensive stone. Same with Elsa, they're already going first, let's give him the offensive stone and sacrifice it. But I mean, it's just so hard not to believe that your character is just going to deal more damage if they just go more times. And I know that there might be some games where you look at the critical chance and you just think like, man, Elastigirl could just land all crits at 24% chance, and if she's got an offensive stone, I just smash people, right? But the other thing that was tough about like some of these characters were if they're not your primary damage dealers, like the same thing with crit damage. Like look at the crit power. Well, nobody's got Maleficent. Hardly anybody's gonna have Hero Hamada unless you spend a bunch of money at max level. I'm not saying you don't have him, but out at max level, Stitch isn't out yet, Yokai's not out yet, Zeus isn't out yet. So we have this big critical power team that's definitely going to make big changes later on. And so you look at it and it's like, Stitch can deal 300% his damage almost. Like Hero Hamada can deal 300% his damage. But how much damage are they dealing? Right? Like we got to go find him. All right, well, like, and I keep looking, I'm looking. And it's like, I don't know, I miss it. Like here's Stitch down here at 941. So I'm like, I mean, okay. He's going to deal like 2,700 damage. But Elsa almost does that just in general. Or sorry, he's not even going to be dealing that. He's going to be dealing like 2,400. It's like Elsa's doing that without the stone. So it didn't necessarily like feel bad, but it's still not leaving like the best taste in your mouth when you go through and look at these things. Just trying to figure out like what characters do I want to have, why do I want to do this, what stones am I going to invest in. I do think it's nice that you can swap the stones in and out, and it allows you to have a little bit more flex, again with that update, with us being able to attack each other's tournament defenses and have the clubs work together. I think we will see like a big difference, but there were just a lot of factors to look at because like Davy Jones, he's already got a fairly high speed level. So when I look and find him on offense, he also is pretty high. So now I got to look at like, well, what's his crit chance? He's up here in the top 15. So Davy Jones is like a pretty well-rounded all-around character, but that we're not seeing a whole lot because he has that kind of one-shot thing and it does what it does. And so like everybody's trying to find their spaces and do this and do that. You got like Zerg, who's just going to deal like a bazillion damage with a couple of his autos, so maybe you just want to make sure that he does it. Maybe because he's attacking so many times, you do just want that crit chance stone, right? You do just want to look at him and go, all right, like Emperor Zerg, I think he's way down, right? He's only got a 9% chance. He goes up to 15, and if he hits somebody a million times, that's where we're going to be. But, again, those are my recommendations. Those are the stones that I would run. That's why I would run them. That's kind of how I came up with it. If you have any feedback, if you have any questions, if you have any comments, you want to debate these things, I want to hear it. We're always trying to grow in the community, all the players trying to help each other out. I hope that you found this video helpful. And even if you don't agree with the recommendations that I gave, I hope that you understand where I'm coming from. And I hope that you have an idea of how you should be basing your characters in the future. If you like what you saw and you want to see more content like this, go ahead and ring that bell for me. Like I said, drop some comments. Make sure you get in that Disney Discord so you're not missing out on anything. That's going to do it for us here. Until next time, ta-ta for now.